I've found myself lately reflecting on contrasts and how so much of this world is dependent upon contrast. And what I mean by that is really needing the drama, addicted to drama, addicted to the good and bad to feel something. Because a lot of people really aren't connected to peacefulness as an ongoing state of being. It's a constant state of reactivity to the good things and celebrating the good things and the bad things and feeling very overwhelmed and disappointed by the bad things. And I saw this Joseph Campbell video last night on Netflix. He has a lot of watch instantly Netflix, or he doesn't have them, but he appears on them. Anyways, he was talking about this metaphor of, let's say that you live in San Francisco and across the bay you've heard of this place with many teachers and spiritual people living there in Berkeley, and you're curious about it. You want to venture there. And then in your world, you know, there's the good and bad, the struggles and all those kind of things going on, but you hear that there's a peacefulness and a kind of unity and just oneness energy that exists over across the bay. So one day a boat comes and picks you up, and as you travel there, you feel the air against your face, you feel the aliveness of the journey, and the water is splashing up against the boat. And then you get there, and there's no more duality. You don't have, on this spiritual arrival, the highs and lows, the good and bad, and so you really feel a sense of peacefulness when you're there. But then you start thinking about where you came from across the bay. You think of San Francisco and you want to look back to see what's going on there, maybe explore it and see that world again. But then you turn around and it's no longer there. And I think the reason this touched me when I heard this was this feeling that I've had within me, that a longing and nostalgia for duality, because the highs are so wonderful, but the highs really do require the lows, and that to live as peace as your primary focus means letting go of the drama. And instead of experiencing the highs that come as a contrast to the lows, there's this middle space of peacefulness. And you know that you're into your spiritual path when that middle ground of peacefulness becomes as good as the highs once were. And if you find yourself losing interest in various high-based activities that you used to explore, things that gave you a thrill, you no longer need thrills. That's a good sign that you're starting to understand peace. And when you're in a peaceful state, the simplest things are enough. No matter what's going on, it's enough. You don't need things to be happening around you the way that you once did, because you were addicted to external circumstances and needing things to go a certain way, people to act a certain way, and, you know, kind of controlling your way through life to get things to go the way that you want to go. You don't need that if you are letting go of the contrasts. And Kurt Vonnegut said that he's an author, and he was an author, and he talked about how a lot of people think that they want their life to be highs and lows. And I saw him speak. He was drawing a kind of a sine wave or cosine wave on the chalkboard at the time, or the overhead. And he said that what you really want is your life to look more like this. He drew a line horizontal through the wave. And that didn't make a lot of sense to me at the time, because I was still an undergrad and had yet to really have any connection to spirituality or peacefulness or presence. I wanted good things to happen. I wanted the highs, and if the lows had to happen, then so be it. I wanted the highs of life. That's what it's about, getting those peaks and suffering through the valleys. But now I understand what he means. It is more about letting go of a need for extremes. And those extremes can become an addiction because you get a chemical rush. And even if you get a really dark, painful chemical experience in your brain that comes from depressive and disillusioning experiences, then when you have things go the way you want them to go, at the peaks, you know, at the highs, then you forget about those lows and it doesn't matter because you're getting the highs. But you can replace that and allow yourself to live more like a house cat. And if you observe a house cat, they, you know, they sleep, they wander around, they like to cuddle, they, you know, have their little food, and then they, you know, maybe want to play sometimes, but they're never neurotic like most humans are. They're more peaceful in the way they exist. And we're going to always have some element of contrast in life. There's going to be night and day. There's going to be times where you make more money or make less money. And you can still have preferences. Say you prefer a sunny day to a rainy day. You prefer having money to not having as much money, but you don't get addicted to your preferences because they are just preferences. They're not needs. There's so much overlap between spiritual wisdom of the Eastern tradition and cognitive psychology, in which there's talk like from Ellis about you don't need to make any situation into a must or a should. You don't need things to happen. You can prefer them, yes. You prefer situations to be one way or another, but you can let go of a lot of anxiety and depression by practicing changing your thoughts about situations from I need things to be this way, or this person shouldn't have done what they did, to I would prefer things to be such a way, or I would have preferred if somebody did something, but I don't need it. And as we let go of all these external needs, then we can connect more with the peace that arises from allowing things to be as they are. And you can still try to modify life if you feel guided in some way to change it in some way, but it doesn't matter so much. You can let go of all this clinging and grasping and forcing and kind of an aggressive way of interacting with life. So you can observe what is from a more still place and connect with your witnessing self when you decide that you're not identifying with your thoughts of attachment. And because when you are identifying with them, then you think that you are the results of what is happening around you constantly. And so you're always up and down. And you might try to modify these feelings by food addiction, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, any kind of way of getting away from your constant up and down struggling feelings that come from being identified with what's going on. So the practice is observe the charge that you feel, observe the emotional reaction that you have, and then practice telling yourself this doesn't matter that much. You know, your identification with your life situation is not as important probably as you think it is. Your life situation is not as important as you think it is. I find for myself that I still engage in contrasts, such as watching basketball and football. I have my favorite teams, and of course I would prefer my teams win than they lose. But I'm not finding myself as attached. I remember once when I was around 10 or 11, my favorite team, Michigan State, they lost a game It was during the regular season. And I was so attached. I remember afterwards I went up in my upper bunk, my bunk bed, and I just started crying. I was just so upset that my team lost. And I also still play video games. I'm not into violent ones because they just feel a little abrasive for me, but I like strategy games. And I'm finding that I can use playing games where the goal is to win, to observe my reactions. So if I get upset when I lose, then this is an opportunity to explore my attachments, to explore the charges that I still have. Because that's the thing, I think if something still has a charge, it's hard, a lot of people just totally reject everything that upsets them and they don't explore it anymore. But there's still lessons there, if you still have something to learn, explore it. You don't need to just shut out everything or stop everything, but explore it, see what you learn from it, because deeper understanding of yourself and your personal relationship to external events is going to deepen your understanding. So you're not just practicing some concept, you're living from a place of knowledge that comes from experience. Because when you experientially understand suffering and what causes suffering, then you're more likely to just stop doing the things that lead to suffering. Thanks for listening.